Hello and welcome to our next episode of In the Spotlight. I'm Laurel Starks and I am your host. I'm joined today by Megan O, who comes to us out of Plano, Texas. She serves the Collin County legal community, and Megan has got quite an impressive background. She's been a realtor for going on 10 years, but prior to that, she had a long career as a paralegal working in the legal industry. She's been a certified divorce real estate expert since 2022, and shortly after that, she also got trained as a collaborative divorce professional, where she earned her credential in 2023. Megan is certainly no stranger to education. She also obtained her bachelor's degree with an emphasis in law, as well as a master's degree from University of Texas at Dallas. And she has gotten her pricing strategy advisor certificate from the National Association of Realtors, as well as short sale and foreclosures. So those all bode well to someone who is working in the divorce space, because frequently we are brought in for distressed property sales, as well as ensuring that we provide good valuations and so forth for our family law attorneys. Megan also is a member of our Alumni Speakers Bureau. So she is certified through the Alumni Institute to provide legal education for family law attorneys through bar associations, as well as individual offices, lunch and learns, and so forth. And she is also one of our advisors. She sits on our advisor panel, and she coaches and mentors new CDREs who are coming through the ranks of our program. So welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for all that you do for us, and also for joining me today in the Spotlight.
Thank you, Laura. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, Megan, about your business. Tell us what your business was like before you got into divorce real estate, and what it's like now, your team structure, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, I am the full-time selling agent, so I do both buyers and sellers. I have a full-time operations person, and then we're in the process of hiring our third support person through a virtual assistant program. So right now, just two of us operating. I've been in business almost 10 years now, and before becoming a CDRE, most of my business was my sphere, so people I know, as well as any referrals from them, and vendor referrals. I'd say about 85% of that business was people I already knew. The last bit of it would be open house referrals or vendor referrals type situation. After becoming a CDRE in 2022, it started to grow a little bit each year. I probably gained an extra 1 or 2 units in the divorce business, but I've really seen the most growth this year, 2025. It's now almost 40% of my business. It's at this moment, September of 2025, it's about 25% of my business, but we have several in contract. So by year end, I expect it to be about 40% of my business.
Wow, that is incredible. And I know that you have worked diligently. You never give up. You continue to pour into your family law community. And you've got several speaking engagements coming up as well, with different family law groups and so forth. So it certainly is an earned benefit that that your business has grown to the extent that it has. You see a lot of people, Megan, who go through the program, because you do serve as an advisor for a lot of our newer students. What are some of the questions that you get, and what is some of the advice that you would give to someone who is looking to get into the divorce niche space in real estate?
Yeah. Well, as far as questions that I get from newer students or anybody maybe even interested in the program, one of the main ones is, do they need to have any kind of legal background or legal knowledge, similar to my legal background? And I say no. Our program is very, very good about teaching you what you need to know on the legal side of things so that you can get started in this niche. So no need to have like a background in legal. what I would suggest to them is that you have a passion to want to serve a community through education and being a resource, and then of course taking your love of real estate and your skills there to help those people going through this situation. If you're truly passionate about this kind of work and it's not just a transaction, then you're really going to thrive as a CDRE. All the other things we can teach and you can learn over time.
That was great. Given the fact that you do have a legal background and you lived how long were you were
About
in the
18 years, yeah.
18
Yeah.
years. So
10,
for 18 years, you really were immersed in the legal background. What would you say are some of the fundamental differences that that are within the real estate space as it relates to the differences in the legal space? What do realtors kind of need to understand about the legal industry that a lot of times realtors may not know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, kind of like the differences between our real estate industry and legal, and having come from legal, moving into real estate. One of the big things I saw right off the bat before I ever became a CDRE was, and I won't go into the lawsuit that happened in 20 or a while back, but just this difference between how attorneys do things. They have an ethical process, they have paperwork, they have a system for everything they do. And walking into the real estate industry, I saw a lot of people didn't have a system, they didn't have protocol, they didn't have things like that. And that's very different. So if you walked into a lawyer's office and you hadn't done an intake and you hadn't done all these things as like a new lawyer, it'd kind of be crazy, right? They thrive on having a system, a checklist, a methodology. So that is very important to them. So already understanding that they operate like that, if that's not your sweet spot, maybe learning to adapt your skill set to understand they prefer to know that you have a system and gives them a level of comfort. I would say that would be helpful. The other big thing is they are very distrusting of outsiders unless you really are truly like an expert, which is why I loved your program and when you created it to name us as an expert. So before I became a real estate agent, I was working for real estate attorneys more on, both litigation and transactional, but at the tail end more transactional. So in those situations, it's less of dealing with experts. But when you're in litigation, it is all expert based. There's an expert for everything. So when they would have to go to court, they get an expert, example in family law, they get an expert for the child, they get an expert for the financial, they get an expert for, the mental issues that might be going on in the case, or substance abuse problem, they get an expert for that. There's always an expert for these attorneys to rely on. And more often than not, an expert becomes an extension of their team. So they'll have a paralegal, they'll have a law clerk, they'll have an associate attorney, which is like a younger attorney, and then a senior partner attorney that are all on a litigation case. And the expert is just another extension of that litigation case. This is the person that's going to come in and educate the team on whatever subject matter it is so that they can present in court or hearings or wherever they're going on behalf of their client and be very knowledgeable. So if we as a real estate agent understand that we're an extension of their team, we are part of their team as an expert, and we hold ourselves to that standard, they're going to accept us more and be more willing to have those conversations with us.
Interesting. So what would you say are some of the things that realtors need to do in order to become like an extension of their team? Because frankly, I think we would probably both agree that realtors get into the divorce space with the intention of soliciting business from attorneys. And so whether they admit it or not, that's really the hat that they put on, is a solicitor, a lead generator, so to speak. So what would you say would be the difference in sort of bridging that space from being a realtor to being really an extension of a legal team, but in the real estate space?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'm going to answer it more, really from our industry, our real estate industry side, using different examples of coaching that's out there. So you'll have Mike Ferry's kind of referral coaching. I actually am a ninja, so there's ninja-based coaching, which is like referral coaching. The concept in all of these is relationships. And so when you are an expert and you have become part of their team, it's because you've built a relationship with these attorneys. And this is very much what we teach in our program, and it's what I see CDREs who've been in the program are doing successfully, is they've learned to have relationships with these attorneys by engaging with them in their environment, going to the events they're at, or just learning more about who they are and making sure to have conversation with them about their family and their kids. And just today I was talking to one, and her daughter has graduated from UT, right? So we were having a conversation about that. So having a relationship with these attorneys more than just whatever business comes is going to solidify your what I call brain space for them. They're going to remember you because you had a conversation about their kid with them, or their favorite charity that they always donate to, or whatever it is. And so you're really going to have cemented that relationship so that when the need arises for them to refer you in a case, you are the first person they think about. It's not like I'm going to give you a lead. Here's a lead, Megan. It's none of that. It's, oh yeah, Megan and we've been talking about this or that or whatever it is. And I've gotten their brain space. I know that I'm cemented in a relationship with them so that when the opportunity arises, they'll refer me.
And then in addition to solidifying a relationship, you also bring a level of expertise to the table as well. You're not just their friend, right? You also bring a level of expertise. Talk to us a little bit about how you parlay your expertise in real estate and bring it to the legal community.
Absolutely. I really love to ask questions and dive into that relationship with them by asking them questions. One of my favorite ones is, what are you struggling with real estate wise in one of your cases right now? Or can you name a case where you had a real estate problem that just went completely sideways? And they'll start describing the situation and the issue, and almost immediately I can identify a resource that I can provide them that would have either solved that problem if this is already a closed case, or can solve that problem at this time, whether it's pulling a full title report or just simply answering their question because they didn't know how something worked. Well, now I can answer that question. Or maybe it was they needed a valuation on a property. I can provide that. But if you just start asking questions to these attorneys, you will get them to start talking to you, and you can find a way to be a resource through your own skill set. And more often than not, it is just answering their questions and helping them to understand. They don't have a real estate understanding of what we do at all. So they need that information.
Yeah. Very, very good. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get into this niche? A realtor who maybe their business is starting to sort of dry up, certainly in different markets that we're in. Agents are frequently looking for other avenues of getting, building their business. And so invariably, working with divorce attorneys is almost always a suggestion that comes up that gets kind of written down on a whiteboard when they're brainstorming ways to build a business,
Yep.
right? So what advice would you give to those agents?
First piece of advice I would give an agent looking to potentially get into our niche is to really study this niche. And we have a great boot camp that might be the best way for them to truly start to understand what the divorce niche is. It is not an area of business that's for the faint of heart. So if they are very sensitive and don't have a real good thick skin, this might overwhelm that person. So I would really highly recommend that they look into the boot camp or just read as much as they can about divorce, or talk to somebody in our program. I'm sure you can call any CDRE and they'd be happy to talk to you about it. But really understanding what you're stepping into, because it is something that is you're working with distressed properties and distressed people. So you have to be a little thick-skinned in order to do this work. And then really the second thing that I would say is if they truly are interested, go ahead and apply and see where where that process takes you, and figure out if this is right for you. And then we can see from there.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. What advice would you also give to divorce attorneys? You and I have talked about this a lot, and there are a lot of things that family law attorneys are very well, and they're very well intended. They're very learning based as well. So what are some things that you think that they maybe should incorporate that that maybe they haven't thought about before?
Yeah. I would absolutely love here in Plano, Texas, and Collin County if the family law community would reach out to a CDRE, myself or any of the others in the county, and ask more questions before really writing final orders. Because I think it will truly help to understand, can your orders actually be facilitated in the real world? Can we actually comply with everything that you were hoping you had mapped out would work? I would also encourage mediators to do that as well, because a lot of times things end up at mediation, and again, orders are made and they can't always be facilitated. So if a mediator and attorneys can just have a consultation with a CDRE for whatever the idea is and just run it by them. I often encourage this as well as with the CDLP. So that's a certified divorce lending professional. So if the intention is for a party to keep the property, have you talk to somebody about whether they truly can keep the property? And if you find out that they cannot, what is the next step, right? That would kind of land over in a sale, right? In a CDRE's lap, but maybe not. Maybe they can keep the property. And so just having those conversations before orders are written is vital. I've received so many orders, I probably should count them up now, that I wasn't able to facilitate one or most parts of the orders because in reality, those things didn't work out that were outlined in the orders, which is never anything I want to do. I always want to serve the community and fulfill the orders. But if we can't actually implement what was the plan, I don't have the ability to do that. So I would say reaching out and asking us for support and guidance before they draft anything.
Do you have a specific example or
Yes.
two of an actual term that you've seen in an order or that keeps coming up
Yes.
that makes it difficult to facilitate or is a wrinkle in a
Yes.
case?
We often in Texas get one called as is. They want to sell the property as is, which more often than not just means that the attorneys know that this couple does not have the ability to fix the AC or fix the floor or whatever the situation is. And so they just want to sell the property as is. But that does not mean typically what most attorneys think it means, which is just we're just going to put it on the market and somebody's going to buy it in the condition that it's in. That's not true. You have to truly know what the condition is, which most attorneys have never set foot in this house. They don't even have pictures of it, so they don't know what the true condition is. And we might be talking about a paint color change versus there's no flooring, there's foundation is shot, the pool is black. I even taught our students about that. I had one, then I called it the black pool problem, right? It was a black pool house. The pool was black, the foundation was shot, there was over $50,000 worth of damage and repairs that needed to be made to this house. It didn't qualify for financing. So nothing in that order, in that particular order, nothing could be facilitated because there was no equity. And everything that was in that order was based off knowing there was equity in the house, but there was zero equity in this house because of the condition. So it's very important to make sure that we draft orders knowing what the condition of the property is, knowing what the equity situation is, so that we can comply and facilitate what the parties are hoping can happen. In that case, nothing, they still have debts on them even after the divorce because nothing got paid off.
Wow. And there can even be very minor things that can prohibit a buyer from getting a loan. I mean, even not having an operable water heater or something that, is under $1,000 to fix. But without something like that, it would really isolate, us to only cash buyers. And that's just not something that is on the radar of somebody who doesn't live and breathe real estate.
Correct.
All day, right? So that's very interesting. What advice would you give to someone who is going through a divorce? What do you wish that, you and I get these cases on our desk, and it has taken a few years, sometimes several years of going through the divorce process before we even come along. And if we had the opportunity to speak with them and give them some advice before we get involved in these cases, what would you want to
Yeah.
give and say
I
to
have
them?
a great story of that right now, what I would share with the divorcing party. So I have one right now. It is finally in contract. And when it got in contract, the parties were like, thank you so much. We wish we had done this sooner. And one of the parties in particular was like, I wish I had known about you before. So my advice to homeowners is, if you know that your situation is sticky and you're probably going to have to sell this house, tell your attorney sooner rather than later that you would like a certified divorce real estate expert appointed in your case to make sure that this property is sold before it gets posted for foreclosure, which is what happened to this couple. I was able to save it and get it into contract, but they were literally staring down a foreclosure. Yeah, there's no amount of legal paperwork that can be filed in anywhere to stop a foreclosure. It's only money in the form of a contract or money paid to a lender that's going to stop a foreclosure. So if this is the situation that you as a divorcing party is looking at or potentially looking at, I highly recommend you ask your attorney to appoint a certified divorce real estate expert in your case to get this property sold fast.
What can go wrong if you have someone who is not familiar with the divorce process? Maybe it's a realtor who is who's maybe a newer agent, or someone who maybe they're even very experienced but they've never been involved in a divorce case before, or maybe it's a friend.
Yeah. Well, I often get that conversation even from agents as well, but utilizing the services of a real estate agent who's not necessarily trained in divorce can cause a number of problems. The biggest one I typically hear about is just not communicating well with each party, communicating maybe with just one, and the other party doesn't know anything about what's going on with the sale, especially the party who's out of the house already or maybe in the process of moving out, and they're not getting the same information as the other party from the agent. So that's the first one. And it often leads to a breakdown in communication and upset, and then rolls back to the attorney's plates for them to deal with the situation. The other one that I would see is when they get an offer and they get to a situation where they're trying to negotiate and they haven't gained the skill set necessary to figure out how to negotiate between two people who won't talk to each other at all and get everybody to the closing table. That is certainly a skill set that you learn and tweak and constantly work on, because you are trying to get people who dislike each other to agree on something, and that is very challenging to do. So I would say you're acting as a mediator, and you really need to hone in on those skills. And most agents don't have that skill set because typical agents have clients on the same page. They don't usually have clients that don't want to get along and aren't in it for the same reasons. So that's when the whole thing can fall apart. You would have had a buyer, you might have even had a contract, and then the whole thing fell apart because the agent wasn't skilled in how to handle this.
So, skilled in negotiating with each of the clients to obtain mutual agreements on all of the different points that have to be adhered to in a real estate transaction, as well as having good, solid communication with each of the clients, and recognizing that they're both your clients, assuming they're both on title, especially, but they both need to have equal communication, and they both need to have, be given really a seat at the
Yes.
table. And without that, then there's going to be a breakdown in trust inevitably. And if we have a breakdown in trust, then we lose control of the
Yes.
whole thing.
Correct.
So, excellent, excellent. All right, Megan, is there anything else that you would like to share with all of your experience?
I think just that I'm very passionate about serving the legal community and the parties going through a divorce and helping everybody get to their next chapter, right? That's really why I sought out this training. I was doing some divorce work prior to being certified, and I came across a couple, and the gentleman in particular was just really struggling. This was probably the lowest point in his life. And I just remember him asking why I was helping. And I said, because everybody deserves that second chance to start over, and that's what I'm here to help you do. And it really cemented that this work is vital. It's important to help people close this chapter and move to the next one. And so I I'm very passionate about what I do, and I want to serve the legal community through education and through this service, and their clients. So I hope that I can continue this work.
Excellent. Well, you are a wealth of information. You are a proud member of our community. We are very proud to have you, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing out
Thank
there.
you.
So thank you, and keep
Thank
it all
you.
up.